Hey guys, it's Rusty again from Collector Auctions, and I'm on something different today. We are in the airport. We're at BWI Airport, heading to Chicago. We're going to do something different today. We are going to go to Chicago. We're going to go to the National Sports Collectors Convention. It is the biggest sports card memorabilia show in America, and we're going to do something that is maybe a little weird, but we are going to be looking for comics at a sports card show. And not, like I said, not just a small sports card show, it is the largest in America. So stay tuned and I'll take some footage and we'll hope you enjoy this show. All right, guys, we are finishing up here at the National on day 5. We've had a great time. We've looked at lots of sports cards, and we found a lot of comics, and that's what this show is specifically. We are doing mostly comics today, and we found some great things. Definitely some great, not at 9.8, Incredible Hulk was something else to see. It's pretty neat. I'll probably never see another one like it again. But we found some comics. I ended up getting a couple things. When I get home back to Baltimore, we'll sit down and we'll go through the books and I'll give you my review of the show. Hope you enjoyed all the footage that I took here, and I will see you in a bit. So guys, I finally made it back from Chicago. We had 5 days in there while we were at the National Sports Collectors Convention. 5 days of sports memorabilia, over 180 athletes signing. It was just a fabulous trip. Sports cards, sports collecting is my other passion that I have, and I don't talk about that a lot here on the channel, if at all, but one of the things I wanted to do while I was looking for great autographs and getting things signed was look for comics at the show. Because if you guys have followed the channel any longer than a year ago even, you'll know that I picked up some great comics at this show a year ago from one of the dealers who is a regular at the National. And I ended up with just an absolute stunner of X-Men 95, where I had gotten it cleaned and pressed. I did that work myself. I spent probably about $180 because he had a $200 price tag on that book. And I bought that as part of a bundle, so the price was a little bit less. And I took it, cleaned and pressed it, sent it in CGC, and I got that 9.8 on that book. It's just absolutely fabulous. I couldn't believe I got that grade. And a few other great books in there. In fact, there's a few that I still haven't even got into the press yet. I'm so backlogged from the things that I am working on. But I knew that that particular dealer would be at the show. My goal when I went into the show was to see if there were going to be any other dealers and what other comics I could find there. And as you can see from the footage, I found a lot of comics, and from dealers, as well as what I expected. Some was from the auction houses like Golden and Heritage Auctions. And those books are just fabulous. I mean, to go to Golden Auctions and to see that Hulk 181 as a 9.8, that was pretty cool. I had contemplated going back there and see if I could take it out of the protective case, not the CGC case, but the display case, and to see if I could actually hold it and take a picture, but I really kind of just ran out of time and didn't do that. But Heritage had some monster books right there. You saw the Superman #1 and some of the other books that they had there. There were dealers. There was that one dealer, and if you caught the glimpse of it in my montage, just in a regular display case, he had it was a retouched, it was conserved, retouched, had color touch, purple label, Detective Comics number 27, and they had a price tag of $435,000 on that. It's one of those, I probably would have liked to have just taken it out and just held it for a little bit to see if it really was the real thing, but because it was in a little grimy case, I couldn't believe that. You'd have a book that's nearly worth $500,000 just sitting in this old dirty display case. I mean, that, yes, it was graded, but it was, you know, I think I would take care of my things a little bit better. In fact, I think if I had something like that, I think that book would have already gone to one of the auction houses to basically move at that point. But there were a lot of dealers that had comics that were just had a handful of comics. I think you might have seen that one shot where I had all of those key Batman comics. First Poison Ivy, first Riddler, first Riddler in the Silver Age, Scarecrow in the Silver Age, first Two-Face in the, I guess, Bronze Age technically. And I pulled all those books out of a box. They were not bagged and boarded, they were just bagged. And they were in really rough shape. And I literally had laid them out so I could do that shot. But when I went back to that table, I couldn't find them anymore. I'm sure somebody might have picked them up. At the time when I did that particular shot, the dealer was kind of busy trying to get set up. And so I didn't get a chance to go back and see what the prices were at that time. And when I went back there, I couldn't find them again. So
Who knows if they moved on and everything. To be honest with you, they were in such rough shape, I don't even know if I'd be interested in getting them. Even that first Poison Ivy, that Batman 181, it was written on the cover, and I don't even know if it still had the centerfold. Now, I did find that at another comic dealer. It was a comic and card dealer. He had a bunch of good comics. That was the one wall. It was the first appearance of Poison Ivy. They had the first appearance in Strange Adventures of Deadman. Red Sonja, the first appearance in Conan. And they had a bunch of good comics at that particular dealer as well. But the one that I ended up buying books from was the same dealer that I bought from last year. And you saw his sign there. I don't know if it's A to Z or AZ Comics and Cards, Cards and Comics. It's that sign that you saw in the video is a little hard to read. But again, he had a lot of great books, including some great slab books. And I took my time this year. When I shoot the video, I actually shoot some photos of it as well, so I can go back to the table and he puts the prices on there really big, so it's easy to go back and see what he's selling them for. And I would go back to the table, I'd pull up Go Collect and eBay and things like that, and I would do a little research, especially on graded books. Hadn't looked at the books up close at this point, but I see what he's selling it for, and so I could basically judge what grade I would need to get on that book to justify spending X amount of dollars on. Now, this is before any deals are worked out or anything like that. But it gave me a ballpark to be able to go back and then take a look at the books, evaluate them, and then decide if it was going to be worth making an offer on. And quite honestly, a lot of those books were a little rougher once I got them down and look at it. And the owner and I actually spent a lot of time talking about the condition. I told him about getting that 9.8 on that X-Men, about my problem with the Spider-Man 121 that I bought from him last year. I thought it was going to grade out higher up until I had a mishap with the press and turned it into a 5.0. And if you guys remember that video from HeroesCon, it was one of the books I traded for that Silver Surfer number 3. So I told him, I said, I made that trade as part of that trade because I needed to get that book out of my collection. I don't need a reminder of one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made cleaning and pressing. We can all make these mistakes. So you guys, if you go out there and you're learning how to clean and press, take your time, because even that was over a year and a half of me cleaning and pressing, and I overpressed it just a little bit and it popped a staple. And these things can happen, and you got to be prepared. This is one of the reasons I don't take other people's submissions and work on their books. I'm too nervous that I'm going to cause damage. But I'm digressing at this point. So I looked at a lot of the books there. In fact, they had a really nice, it was nice, but it was definitely real low grade as well. A Thor 134, the first High Evolutionary. I looked at that. I looked at his X-Men number 12 and 13, the first appearance of Juggernaut. And the prices, I'm not saying that the prices weren't bad, or I'm not saying that they're good on certain ones like that, but I was definitely I wasn't looking to spend a ton of money, but if I wanted to definitely get something at a higher grade, a book that had more potential down the road. And I looked at some of those EC comics that you saw on the wall there. It was a crime suspense stories issue. I don't remember what the issue number was at this point, but I looked at that. He had a $500 price tag on it. And I told my wife this story. I said, yeah, I didn't spend a lot this year, but I did have a $500 comic book in my hand. And she just kind of looked at me bug-eyed. And I said, don't worry, I didn't get it. But if the condition had been a lot better than it was, then maybe I would have. But then again, maybe at that point he would have raised the price on the book too. So it's double-edged sword there. Anyway, they had a lot of great books there. And in fact, the one that I may end up regretting not getting was he had a 4-color, let me see if I can get this right, 4-color number 189. You can see it there with a lot of the Dale comics on the one shot in the montage. 4-color 189 is the very first Carl Barks cover. And Also, probably the thing that caught my eye more than anything after I did the research on it was it's the second appearance of Scrooge McDuck. And he had a $50 price tag on it, but that book was really rough. And I'm kind of regretting not getting that. I don't know when you're going to run across something like that again. But in the end, I ended up getting 2 comics from him. And I was pretty disciplined this year. There was definitely some other things that I was interested in, but let me just show you the books that I ended up getting. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the National and some of the other things that I found there. So I got 2 books, and this one was more like a throw-in, but it was in really nice shape. And I had pulled this from my PC not that long ago, and I knew that if you could pull a 98.8 on this particular book, actually it had some value. And surprisingly, it's actually gone up since the last time I looked. My copy was not a 9.8. It had a nice color tick. Even though it's still in really good shape, it still has a color-breaking spine tick. It's not going to get that 9.8. So when I saw this, I took a look at it, and I'm like, okay, I'll probably take that, but it's a cheap, inexpensive book for the most part, and I'll add it in as part of a bundle. So let's start with the cheapie. This is DuckTales #1. Scrooge McDuck. You've got the boys, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. What is the pilot's name? I'm forgetting. It's been so long since I watched DuckTales. DuckTales, I guess, what came out in the late 80s, early 90s. What was it? I can't remember the character's name, but I was in college at this point and first working. It wasn't a lot of time for cartoons exactly, especially the kids' cartoons, because if I remember right, didn't they have these on like in the afternoon? And most of the time I'm working, and unless you taped it, I mean, on a VHS, you didn't get to see a lot of these. Anyway, this was always a great book. It's always been in the PC. Again, I don't have a 9.8 candidate. This one I think might get there. There's no color-breaking spine ticks. The only issue that I saw was there's a little bit of a tear. I don't know if you want to call it a tear, down at the bottom left corner on the spine, but the dealer actually had 2 other copies there, and as I'm looking over them, it looked more like a printer defect than any kind of a human error. So I ended up taking what I felt like was the best copy. All of them were pretty good, but I ended up taking that. Give you some values in this. This is why I took this. 9.8s just sold here back in June of this year on eBay. The highest price was a $315. That was a buy it now. And an auction style went for $248. That's why I got this book. I spent $10 on this book, a 9.8 candidate. That's got some really good return on value on that. That's why I picked that book up. And again, it wasn't that expensive. But the other book, actually, I don't think it's going to be as valuable as this if I can get a 9.8. But it is an all-time classic. It is a key comic, and the condition I thought was really good. Let me show it to you. Walt Disney's Donald Duck. This is 4-Color Comics number 318. This came out in March of 1951. It is a Carl Barks classic. In fact, if you look it up on Key Collector, this is one of the first dozen or so comics that are listed for Carl Barks. I mean, it's not necessarily key because of the story itself necessarily. There's no significance like first appearance of this or first appearance of that. But these Carl Barks stories, there are certain ones that just pop to mind when you think of Carl Barks. And this one here, what is it? It's the No Such Varmint, right? That right there, along with things like, was it Old California, Sheriff of Bullet Valley? Is that right? Is that the name of it? There are just some really classic Donald Duck, Carl Barks stories, and this is one of those. And I had been looking at it. I saw the price tag. He had a price tag of $125 on this. And I went back, and knowing that it was such a key for Carl Barks, I decided to look it up. I researched what the grades were. I wasn't finding a lot of graded at that, but what I did do was I started looking at, go to eBay. If you wanted to spend $125 on this book, what was the condition? And what I was finding was it's actually a decent price, not a great price. You can pick up on ones that were a little bit worse for wear around that $100 mark. And to be quite honest, I was hoping to get this book down a little bit. So I ended up bundling it, and I think I ended up spending $120 altogether for this book, these two books altogether. So it's not basically $15 off of this one, $5. He added this one as $15. So for $120, that's what I picked up at the show. These are the only two books I ended up buying. Again, they had a lot of other dealers. They had a few comics here and there. It's funny, there was one dealer that was towards the back of the room. I didn't see him until Friday. In fact, the National, if you guys ever get the chance to go to the National, you should check it out. It is one of the most overwhelming things you'll ever see. 5 days, and I dare say that most people didn't get to see everything. It's almost impossible, especially this year. This year, they had greatly enlarged this particular location. In fact, they almost doubled the location in size, and it showed too. I mean, they had more signers this year than they've ever had. Usually it's around, I want to say 100 and, oh, what was it? I'm trying to think how many signers they usually have. I don't know. I can't remember the number of signers. All I know is they greatly increased that. They greatly increased the footprint, and you could tell that. In fact, after the show, as soon as I got home, they were announcing this set the record. And all the years that they've been doing this national at any location that they've ever done, apparently this set the record. And you could see it. In a lot of the areas, it was too deep with the vintage baseball cards and memorabilia, but then you would go to the areas where you would have the newer sports cards and the younger crowd who are into flipping these Bowman Chrome graded tins from PSA, and these tables would be 6 deep, people buying and trying to sell and everything, and it was just crazy. You could almost not even walk around. But I ended up in the back room where I found a lot of the vintage cards. There was a dealer. I finally made it around their side of the table, and he had a display of pretty common Bronze and Copper Age books. And I'm like, you put out on your table these books that you really, these books are $2 and $3 books. I mean, you're spending $1,500 on a booth, and that's what you're putting out. Like, I can understand if you put out some grade A comics, graded, higher priced things, but it was a little strange to find some dealers had comics, but they were just kind of, I don't want to say garbage, but I can't believe you would bring that to this show and expect to move it. Now, the comic dealer I talked to, he said that he actually did really well. He had a lot of people, there's a lot of crossover between the two hobbies, and a lot of similarities, especially for us older folk. We grew up with both of these things, and and I just said, again, I've gotten worse over the last few weeks. I'm going to stop doing that. My wife, Lisa, will be real upset with me again. So there's a lot of crossover again between the two hobbies. And my interests, honestly, fall more on the comic book side, but I love the sports memorabilia. I love going there. I love being able to meet some of the athletes that I want autographs from. All I know is I didn't have to see him this time, so I didn't, because I'd already gotten his autograph, but getting to see Dan Marino, knowing that he was there, that was pretty cool. But they had athletes from just about every sport and every level. It was pretty cool. But do you guys yourself a real treat. Next year, it's going to be in Cleveland. Check them out there. I'll definitely be going back, because you never know what you're going to find at this show. I mean, there must have been half a dozen to a dozen copies of Hulk 181 graded throughout the show there. And that was pretty cool. Not that I was in the market at that exact moment, mostly because I'm looking to trade partially up to get that 181. And I'm not looking for a graded version. I'm looking to trade some really high-value graded books to try to get into that mid-range raw copy of 181. So it wasn't like I was carrying the money to be able to just pay cash for any of those things at that time, but it was surprising how many copies that I found. And yeah, it was pretty cool. But that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, enjoyed some of this different experience. We're looking for comics, as I said, at the largest sports card show in America. And honestly, this was the largest sports card show in history at this point. So that's pretty cool, and it's pretty cool to be able to find comic books at this and to pick up something like this, which was just an all-time classic comic book. The condition, by the way, the condition on this is going to be, it's really good. There is a little color rub right there, and there are a few spine ticks, and once we took it out of the bag and board, the back looks pretty good. I mean, we'll give it a cleaning, but there's no spots or anything really bad on the back. But the front will benefit from a press, definitely. And I think we'll do really good on this. Now, this is a book that I'll put it here in the video, but we'll see what we do, because it doesn't quite matter what this grade ends up being, as long as it doesn't drop down too much. But this is one that I want for the PC. I didn't go there this year looking for books to flip. I looked for something that I wanted. And that's why I didn't buy a lot of the other books. But this one I wanted for the PC. And right now, I think once I get it clean pressed, I think, like I said, a press will do this book wonders. I'm hoping it'll reach that 7.0, maybe a 7.5. I'm not too sure. I mean, the spine is really good. It just has a few ticks over here. So it's not like there's a lot of damage to this book. But it doesn't have a lot of value. The last price I could find on 7.0 on this was off of eBay back in July of 2020 for $260. 7.5 went in 2022 in October for $270. So that's not a great return. Obviously, if this book could pull any higher, it'd definitely be worth more. And those prices are 2 to 3 years old at this point. So it's, who knows? I mean, that was one of them was right before the pandemic, and the other one was right after. So it's kind of hard to tell what this would be. But I think this is going to grade it. Right now, I think it's going to grade out to about a 7.0. We will see. We'll get into the press. We'll give it a shot, and we'll see what happens. I'm not in any rush. Again, I still have books from this particular dealer from last year that I haven't even submitted yet. So we'll get that in. We'll get these in, and we'll see. And we'll do it. I did it again. There's 2 in this episode. Lisa, my apologies. We will get these books in, and at some point we'll do an episode and we'll do a reveal. But that'll be much further down the line and to be determined, guys. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this journey. This was a little bit different of an episode. I hope you enjoyed this format today. This was a lot of fun. I probably will be I'll do another one like this next year, I'm sure. But definitely join me in the following week for the next episode. I'm not sure what I'm going to end up doing yet. My guess is it's going to be a heritage auction unboxing or just a reveal. I've been picking up some things over the last month, and I probably will do that for the next episode. But in the meantime, if you liked today's episode, definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these great episodes. I put these episodes out every Monday and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And most of the time I'm on there live, so if you want to chat, definitely get on there live with me at 10 o'clock, and we can chat about the books that I'm talking about or anything else at that point. And if you are ever interested in any of the books that I have on my channel, just reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on Instagram. I also sell a lot of the comics directly on eBay and on Shortbox. So my links for both of those are down in the description below. But that's it, guys. I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, every comic has a story.